Before we begin, please note this story is shared for educational and historical purposes. It explores real events, but no graphic detail is included. Some listeners may still find the subject unsettling, so discretion is advised. Let's begin. On a quiet summer evening in the small Queensland town of Gatton, just before the turn of the 20th century, three young siblings set out for what should have been a joyful night. Instead, they walked straight into one of the most disturbing crimes in Australian history, an event so baffling that more than a century later, it remains unsolved. This is the story of the Gatton Murders. It was December 26, 1898, Boxing Day. The Murphy family lived just outside Gatton, a farming town west of Brisbane. On that evening, three of the Murphy siblings, Michael, aged 29, Norah, 27, and Ellen, just 18, prepared to attend a dance at the Divisional Hall, about 3 miles away. They hitched their sulky, a small horse-drawn cart, and set off along the dusty country road. Michael was well known in the district as hard-working and respected. Norah was admired for her quiet beauty, and Ellen, the youngest, was cheerful and full of promise. None of them could have imagined the fate awaiting them on that moonlit road. The three were last seen alive as they passed through the town on their way to the dance. But when they arrived, they discovered the event had been cancelled. Instead of returning directly home, they lingered for a while, chatting with others, before deciding to make their way back. The road home was quiet, the fields stretching out under the stars. Somewhere along that lonely track, someone was waiting. The next morning, when the Murphys failed to return, their brother-in-law grew concerned. He set out to find them, following the road toward the hall. What he discovered in a paddock near the road would shock not only the family, but the entire nation. The horse was still hitched to the cart, standing quietly. But nearby lay the three siblings, each of them dead under strange and disturbing circumstances. Michael's body was found first. He had been killed by a violent blow. Just a short distance away, Norah and Ellen lay side by side. They had suffered further violence before their lives were taken. Their hands were bound, and their bodies positioned next to each other with chilling precision. Nearby, investigators found odd details: a handkerchief stained with blood, trampled ground, and the tracks of the sulky moving in circles. To the police, it seemed as if the attacker, or attackers, had lingered at the scene. The strange, almost ritualistic arrangement of the bodies only deepened the mystery. News of the murders spread quickly, shocking not only the small community of Gatton but the entire country. Unfortunately, from the very start, mistakes plagued the investigation. Crowds of locals rushed to the site before police secured it, trampling through evidence and disturbing the ground. By the time detectives arrived from Brisbane, much of the scene had already been compromised. Robbery was dismissed, the siblings' belongings were untouched. This left darker possibilities: revenge, lust, or something far more unusual. In the weeks that followed, police questioned several people. Local men were investigated, including itinerant workers and even a butcher with a troubling past. But every lead seemed to collapse. Some believed it would have taken more than one person to control and overpower three young adults. Others pointed to the strange, almost ceremonial way the bodies were arranged. Could this have been a ritualistic act? Yet, despite the speculation, no one was ever charged. Witness statements conflicted, and the trail grew cold. The effect on Gatton was immense. Families locked their doors. Young women were afraid to travel alone. The Murphy family, once respected farmers, were plunged into grief that never lifted. For months, newspapers across Australia carried stories of the murders. Headlines speculated endlessly, and as each lead failed, frustration grew. The case began to symbolize not just a local tragedy, but the failings of the Queensland police. Some investigators wondered whether the Gatton murders were connected to other unsolved cases. In particular, the death of a young woman named Mary Jane Parker in Brisbane just weeks earlier raised suspicions. The crimes carried disturbing similarities. Was there a roaming predator in Queensland at the time? Or was it simply coincidence? No evidence ever firmly linked the two. Public anger over the bungled investigation grew so loud that in 1899, a royal commission was launched. It examined not only the Gatton case but the state of policing in Queensland. The inquiry exposed shocking levels of incompetence, delays in sending detectives, mishandling of evidence, and lack of coordination. Despite the findings, however, justice for the Murphy siblings never came. As the years passed, the Gatton murders became one of Australia's most infamous unsolved crimes. Historians, amateur sleuths, and modern criminologists have all tried to piece together what really happened that night in 1898. Some argue it was a local with a hidden grudge. Others believe it was a stranger who passed through and vanished before being caught. And then there are those who believe the strange positioning of the bodies points to something darker, an act driven not only by violence, but by a sinister ritual. More than a century later, the image lingers: 3 siblings, young and full of life, riding out for an evening of dancing and laughter, only to vanish into one of history's darkest mysteries. The Gatton murders remind us how fragile life can be, and how evil can sometimes walk quietly among us. Perhaps someday, with advances in forensic science or the discovery of a forgotten clue, the mystery will be solved. Until then, the Murphy's fate remains one of Australia's most chilling and enduring puzzles.